Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with a story in which our OP was selling his car and ran into a daring Fast and Furious fan. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Guy generously offered a G for a car that blue booked at $6,000 US. The setup. Baby on the way, had a spare car. It was a popular model among the tuner set. I'm not one of them, but when I bought it, I just wanted a fun little car I could throw around a bit. In short, for half the time I had it, it wasn't even my daily driver, just something I played with on the weekends. Essentially, to me, it was a toy. I had another, much more practical vehicle for getting around that would be much better for hauling a baby around, and the practical car was newer. So I decided to sell my toy. Did my research, had it detailed, tuned up, changed the oil, all the crap you do when you're trying to get the best price, put the little for sale sign in the window with my number and asking price, $500 above book, because it was loaded, exceptionally low miles, newer tires, etc., and listed it online. I took it to the grocery. As I'm loading up, a kid in a street racer uniform walks up to me, fans a wad of 20s at me, and says, "I'll give you a G for it right now." I can only assume he was offering me $1,000 for a car listed at a realistic $6,500. I looked at him, then the clapped out Fast and Furious reject he was driving, chuckled and said, "I would too." Got in my car and went home. Then the text started. He went up to $1,500 while warning me I wasn't going to get a better deal. I'd already turned down a much more reasonable offer because it was literally the first day I had it for sale. He came up to $2,000 and the trade of his beater the next day. When I turned that down, he called me a racist and said he was going to report me. He appeared to be white, as I am. And to whom? For what? I didn't ask these questions, but I still scratch my head about them. 2 hours after I sold it for asking price to an older gentleman who'd done his research and was looking for a good, reliable car to send his daughter off to college in, I got another text. $2,200 in trade of his piece of crap. Final offer. I told him no dice. I got another tirade on my foolishness for expecting near what the car was worth that ended with, "Ain't nobody gonna pay that for that piece of crap," to which I replied, "Somebody just did." I was told to do several vile things to myself, some of which were physiologically impossible. I really wish I'd transferred those screen caps before blanking my old phone. And our second story. You want things done by the book? All right, let's do that. I work as a freelance artist doing advertisement, ticket, and program booklet designs for various police/firefighter events that give to children's charities. It's not consistent work, but it pays pretty well for what it is. The people I work with directly are a promotions company that was created to sell the advertisement space and tickets. I've been working for them for a long time. Throughout COVID, these people were essentially my only source of income, so I had to put up with their BS, mostly having to put up with having to hear the check is in the mail for 2 or 3 months before it actually arrives. I convinced the owner of the company to download PayPal so I could be paid in a reasonable time. He was confused on how to use it, so I told him about Cash App. I was paid through Cash App only once before he said, "I just want to keep doing this by the book. These websites you're sending me to look scammy. And because I don't work for him, I work for the unions, and they're the ones cutting the checks." I asked him if he really wants to do that. Of course, he said yes. He's becoming quite upset with me since he realized doing it by the book actually gives me all the leverage. From that point forward, I'd begun putting my logo watermark on every single thing I send him. The first time he experienced this was with show tickets. He asked me to remove the watermark and send it to the printers. He was satisfied with the work. I told him the watermark will come off when there's money in my account. He told me that he can't start making sales until he has the tickets to sell, thus he doesn't have the money to pay me. Oh man, that sucks. Better figure out how to pay me electronically then. Here's my BTC and ETH wallets, PayPal and Cash App info, as well as info for direct deposit. He insisted he couldn't pay me before he has the tickets, so he agreed to a 50% price increase for me to release the files to him without pay and with my company's logo on them. I actually got paid for that today. The second time was with a show poster. Same instance occurred, only this time I was told I'd have to talk to the Fraternal Order of Police, FOP, about being paid since I work for them. They were very confused when I called them. An hour later, I got an angry phone call and was paid via direct deposit from the promoter's business account, not the FOP's account. This morning was pretty interesting. He called me up while meeting with the police association to talk about cutting me a check for the last show that happened yesterday. On this call, I was asked about bank transfers, how to make a Bitcoin wallet, all that good stuff. But the promoter asked why my invoice stated that I'm no longer accepting checks as a form of payment. Are you sure you want me to answer that in this meeting? I asked him. He said yes. So I told him while he was on speakerphone with his boss, because you don't pay me for months when we do checks. I only accept online or bank transfers. There was a little back and forth between him and the guy from the police association. It didn't sound like Mr. Promoter was having a good time. I was told I'd get a call back about payment. Well, I received that call from the police association, not the promotion agency. I've been paid via PayPal and apologized to profusely. When I got the call from the promoter afterward, he had a very upset tone. He asked me why I'm doing this. Well, sir, you told me you wanted it done by the book, right? This is by the book. We didn't do it by the book before because I've worked for you for years and your son is my best friend. So this is how it'll be from now on. We'll see how it turns out. I'm confident I won't be losing any work since the police associations, firefighters, and other organizations have repeatedly told me how great my work looks and how I often work at half the price of other freelancers. When will people learn that "Are you sure you want me to answer that?" means you absolutely won't like the answer and will be embarrassed if I actually say it? And our last story. I framed them for a pretty sum of money. My neighbors and I would always feud. I'd get in physical fights with all their kids. They ranged from a juice pig failed out cop turned security at 21, a 16-year-old drug-abusing loser, a 14-year-old know-it-all, and a 12-year-old who had a crush on my sister. They were all pigs, always leaving trash to blow freely in their yard, never taking their shoes in the house, parking on our lawn, shoveling their gravel-filled snow into our lawn, etc. I was smaller than the 12-year-old by a few inches, so I was an easy target. I think the whole thing started over street hockey. I scored on the 14-year-old brother, and they said I cheated. The 16-year-old and 14-year-old got a good idea in their head one day, jumped me while I was walking back home from uptown, and made me eat grass while working on my kidneys. When I stood up, they threw me in a rose bush. I ended up getting bit by a few wasps. I ended up at the hospital. Nothing too serious, just a few scars. Had to have a thorn removed from my eye, blah, blah, blah. So I got into their shed and removed the nut that holds the front tire to the bike. The 16-year-old did a wheelie and nothing happened. The 14-year-old jumped a ramp and the front wheel came off. He went to the hospital. I thought it was finished after that. My parents had left with my sister to go to a hockey tournament. The neighbors thought I went with them. Their parents were also leaving for a week for vacation. The night their parents left for vacation, they threw food coloring, rocks, broken bottles, boxes of street chalk, and bags of flour into our pool. The oldest brother then drove them off somewhere for the week. Instead of vandalizing my neighbor's house in retaliation, I vandalized my own even more. I threw eggs, wet paper, and flour at my house and up on the roof. I threw hairspray-soaked lunch meat on the truck, van, and Jeep, and I let the air out of all the tires. I made sure I did it all from angles that would be from their property for the majority of the attack. I used their shoes to muck through my mother's garden to get to the driveway. And then it rained. The flour turned to dough, the eggs rotted, the paper turned to glue, then the sun baked it. It ended up creating a few $1,000s worth of damage from what I did. The pool had to be drained, and the pump and liner had to be replaced. I waited until my parents got home. They called the police took my statement. They'd waited for my neighbors to get home. We all had a sit-down. There was no disputing the damage. I had pictures of them trashing the pool, throwing objects over the fence. My camera didn't have a complete roll of film, so I couldn't document the whole thing. What I did have, though, was enough to convince the police and the insurance company, as well as the neighbors, that their kids were completely guilty. The neighbors agreed to pay for all the damage as long as we didn't press charges. We got a new deck, new paint on the home. My father hand-painted the cedar siding of a 2,700 square foot home every 3 years until he decided to go maintenance-free, and new shingles for the roof. The cars were repainted and the pool was repaired and refilled. The pool, water, and pump were about $6,500 to replace. The roof was about $7,000. The neighbor used his brother-in-law to do the work while my father supervised. The deck was just replacing the surface boards. My father liked the spacing to be tight, so the framework didn't suffer too much damage. About $1,000 for lumber. My father used his old neighbor and my mother's cousin to do the bodywork on the vehicles. I think it was about $3,000 total for the vehicles. The house painting was done by my neighbor's company. My dad figured it took him $700 to $900 worth of paint and scaffold renting to do it himself, so the company would be a bit cheaper. 2 months later, the neighbors moved. I have no idea what happened to any of them. Legal? No. Deserved? Yes. Pro? Hell yes. Love it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.